Hi, I'm David Glass for the Hourglass Podcast. We're pleased today to welcome Ron Pearson, a well-known stand-up comic who's going to help us round out our series on humor and how it impacts the mental well-being of those going through the breakup process. Ron has been a performer for decades as a stand-up, comic, actor, and juggler. Yep, he started out as a street juggler at age 15. The Hollywood Reporter called Ron a comic ball of fire. An LA Times reporter said, "I laughed so hard my jaws ached." He's appeared on The Late Late Show, Chelsea Lately, Dennis Miller, Drew Carey, just to name a handful. His first comedy special earned him a Telly Award, and he currently tours with the Apostles of Comedy troupe. Ron's also known for his film and television work, like The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, That 70s Show, Family Reunion, The George Lopez Show, and Malcolm and Eddie. Last year, he appeared in a film called Dazed and Confused. He's also hosted TV and game shows, warmed up audiences for TV tapings, and he continues to enthusiastically add new material to his act. His topics include commentary on everyday life, opinions on family situations, and all other things that jump into his fast-paced mind. Ron is touring now, just about everywhere. We'll have a list of dates and venues at the end of this segment. This incredibly well-rounded performer has promised to answer all of our questions about breakups, and I can't wait to hear his answers.
How you doing?
Hey, Ron, how are you?
I'm doing good.
You've been through some breakups at some point. I believe you've been married for a good long time, though.
Good long time. Just had my 27th anniversary.
Wow, congratulations on that.
You.
I'm going to ask you more about that towards the end.
Yes.
But back when you were dating, did you ever have a favorite response to someone who said, Ron, we're done. I'm breaking up with you?
Well, I'd say, hey, you're in the act now.
Yeah.
The way you clip your toenails is going to be on the Tonight Show next week. You might want to rethink that thought.
That's
maybe
great.
I'm looking maybe a little more attractive if you don't want that spread over the world. The other thing is, David, I'm deaf.
Okay.
So I'm 90% deaf in the left ear and 30% deaf in the right ear.
Oh.
So if somebody tells me something I don't want to hear, I'm what? I'm sorry. What did you say? And then I just make them go through the process over and over and over, just to keep the pain going. Right.
Yeah.
Let's make them. Or I can also, hey, we're done. If they say we're done, what you said? Oh, we're fun. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. I'm breaking up with you. Oh, you're waking up to me. That's hot. That is hot. You're getting excited, aren't you? Right. You just flip it that way and just drive them nuts.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
The other thing, at one time I said, well, I'm going to follow. You're going to break up with me? Well, I'm going to follow you. So technically it's not true till the restraining order kicks in.
Which is the last thing anyone needs against them is a restraining order. But comedy-wise, that's funny.
Right.
Let's say you had an opportunity
I have a question for you real quick, Dave.
Sure.
Let's just flip it just real quick. So you're a psychologist and then you become a divorce lawyer.
Yeah.
You seem to be picking things that are kind of depressing lines. It's not like there's a lot of yay. So why don't you add Undertaker and get the Triple Crown?
Yeah, too fun. I mean, it's both of them are voyeuristic professions. Psychologists get into people's lives, hear all their sometimes dirty details, and sit back and take it all in. Working as a psychologist for me was too passive. It was just waiting for people to come in and waiting for them to come to some sort of realization. Being a divorce lawyer, I get the same stories without the emotional entanglement, and I can be a little bossier with them. Just like knock it off. That you don't care about the master bedroom furniture. Just give it to her. Let's get this divorce over. So it suits my personality better, but it's still very voyeuristic.
I was just going to say, I think you have I don't know you that well, but you seem to have a really good temperament. I don't think a lot of people will have the temperament for both of those professions, and done right, you can really help a lot of people out, right? In both cases.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the way I approach each case is trying to look at people's entire lives, not just the nuts and bolts of who's going to get what and who has to pay what to whom. But unfortunately, a big chunk of my clients just want to fight. And so we go to court. We spend tons and tons of money and time, and there's lots of tension. Um, and ultimately, they end up in the same place they could have if they just reach an agreement. They go around the block, jump the fence, cross the stream, come in the back door of the house when they could have just walked in the front door.
My old pastor used to say, there's a gate there and you can walk through the gate. But a lot of people, they're going to get to the other side, but they choose the knothole experience and they're going to go through the most painful way to get to that space, Yeah. So interesting, really interesting. Wow. Comedy is psychology as well.
Yeah.
Right. But comedy, you're always digging into truths. The truth of every joke has to have a grain of truth. And that's what you're going to exploit, and exploit is a wrong term. That's what you're going to exaggerate. That's what you're going to pound on. That's what you're going to, because the goal is, what do we have in common?
Mm-hmm.
Right? In all joke writing, what do you and I have in common that I can say in a way that you go, oh yeah, exactly, because you know how it feels. Right. I would think trying to get a solution to a divorce, you're trying to find what they have in common as well, right? It's kind of similar to joke writing.
Yeah. Although ultimately, that when you're trying to settle a divorce, when you're trying to find some sort of middle ground, that's absolutely what we're trying to figure out. The problem is, if you go into litigation, now you're in a court, and now it's just fighting. It's telling your side of the story, ignoring the other side's story, and then finding out which side the judge believes. It's a binary process, 1 or 0. Either you won it or you've lost it on each individual issue. Again, the reason why litigation isn't the best way to go, but it keeps me in business.
California.
Yeah.
It's a place you ought to be. So you loaded up the truck, moved to Orange County.
22 years ago, I moved from Philadelphia. I was already a divorce lawyer. I'd given up being a psychologist 6 years prior.
Yeah.
And I came out to California and found out what the divorce lawyers were charging here, and then the connections that my then brother-in-law had, and I moved out. That was it. It was going from playing for the minor leagues to going right to playing for the Dodgers in the World Series. It was a huge step up.
Wow. How often? So here's a question. How often do people not see their own blind spots that you run into? Because as both a psychologist and a divorce lawyer, you must be sitting there going, they can't even see their own blind spot.
Right.
Does that happen a lot?
Yeah, it happens a lot with my, again, litigation clients. The people who can settle are the smartest and probably the most self-aware. They can get in a room and say, we're just trying to get through this. Whatever happened is in the past. I'm trying to put this other person in this situation in my rearview mirror. The people who are litigating have huge blind spots. And often I can figure it out by just saying, well, what went wrong in your marriage? I always ask that in my initial consultation. And if the person spends the next 25 minutes telling me about how their soon-to-be ex-spouse is crazy and awful and all the terrible things that person did, without ever mentioning themselves, that's a huge blind spot. Because again, judges say, Attila the Hun doesn't get married to Mother Teresa. That everyone brings something to a breakup and a bad relationship. And the people who can't see what they contributed, the things that they did wrong, are the people with those huge blind spots. And those are typically the people who want to fight.
That's so interesting. Comedy, there's 2 types of comedy, right? It's always attacking something. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's attacking yourself.
Right.
And when you're exposing your weaknesses, there's a lot of power in that. Mm-hmm. So it's, I think when I started, I have what's called an intimacy disorder. So I put walls up to protect myself from massive amounts of abandonment in my youth. So I think early on, when I was in my late teens and 20s, early 20s, starting comedy, I was afraid to show my weaknesses. So jokes are about everything else.
Right.
Now when I write, I really write about a lot of my own shortcomings, which is really fun, actually. It's different. So that's why I brought up the blind spot issue, because I'm kind of relating it to comedy and how it connects.
Yeah, and those are the comedians that I enjoy watching. Will show you. Will eventually get to the point of their weaknesses, the things that they do wrong. That's the type of comedy I enjoy the most. Not so much the pointing out the weird things about other people.
Yeah.
Unless it then brings it around to what's weird about them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of weird things about me.
Right. There's a lot of weird things. The truth is, there's a lot of weird things about everyone.
Yeah.
And honestly, the sooner people get over the idea that anyone's perfect or anyone is A+ across the board, the sooner they're going to get along better with all sorts of people. Just even my clients who are through their divorce and now they're out there dating, and they call me up and or I call them up and how's it going? Oh, I met a woman, but she, I don't know, she doesn't have a good taste in food. She likes eating cheesesteaks instead of filet mignon. And I'd say, well, what else about this part? Here are your top 10 things, and so you got 9 out of 10. That's pretty good.
How many people have you divorced that got remarried to themselves, to each other?
Right. Yeah. Actually, 2. One of them, they were out for 2 or 3 years and then got back together. They were divorced for 2 or 3 years and got back together. The other story was we were going into a settlement conference. We were going to meet with a retired judge, and my client called his ex-spouse, soon to be ex-spouse, and wanted to leave her a voicemail message. And then he hung up. He thought he hung up, but he left the phone on. And we were sitting in the waiting room, and he was telling me, I just can't believe this is going on, and how much he loved her, and how he realized what he had done wrong, and he wished he had done something differently. And we went into the thing, and she was crying. And she said, I just got that voicemail you left me. He said, I didn't leave you a voicemail. She said, yes, you did. And then the two of them went out and got lunch and came back after lunch and said, we're not getting divorced. And so really a miracle. Me up. Yeah, really a miracle
That's
result.
Really beautiful.
Yeah.
I have one buddy who comic, Johnny Dark, one of the greatest, he used to tour with the Osmonds and Engelbert Humperdinck and all that. So he's, a couple generations older than me in the comedy world. But he came home from the road one time and the house was empty.
Right.
It was gone and he was devastated, but he ended up remarrying her. And his punchline was, because I wanted half my stuff back.
Right.
And I have another friend, comedian Jeff Allen, a real good friend of mine. He and I have done a couple specials together. We toured together with the Apostles of Comedy and whatnot. And on the way to divorce court to finalize it, they pulled over the car, talked for 10 minutes. What are we doing? Turned around and they're still married and doing great. So it's really fascinating how the mind works with all that stuff, right?
Yeah. And I think those stories also tell part of the story. A lot of times people are in a big rush to break up. It's these days I find a lot of people that, well, why are you breaking up? We're not getting along. We had a big argument and there's no going back. And it's I don't know if the word is refusal. The refusal to actually work on yourself and your relationship is what's most shocking to me, even as a divorce lawyer, because again, everyone who comes into my office, I ask, what went wrong? I'm not getting into right away the money and the assets and the cars and all that stuff. I want to know what the story is. And every one of my clients gets a referral either to their own therapist and or a couples therapist if they want to give it a try. And
occasionally your own card from the other side business.
Right.
Nice.
Right. That's it. I don't practice that way anymore, but people have told me that. It'd be funny. You could have 2 offices right next to each other with a back door, put on a hat as one and a pipe with the other one or whatever.
That's funny.
It's surprising how few people take me up on the offer to try couples therapy, to try and work things out. They decide that things haven't worked and that's it. They're done.
Okay, so now I'll just go back to my own issues, and having so much abandonment. My parents did the best they could. They came from really troubled backgrounds. And so I didn't have a model of how to work on myself, or whenever I had a problem, I was left to my own devices. So therefore, why would I ever go to a therapist? I'm not even in the habit of it. I don't go to anyone for help. So therefore, I'm just really lucked out that I have a loving wife, and I can finally look at myself in the mirror enough and go, oh, wow, I need to work on this and this and this and this. Because, and so I'm just assuming a good chunk of the population out there is very similar to what I have.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know what they think the harm is in going to a therapist and sharing things about yourself, but they're more anxious about doing that than possibly figuring out a solution.
100%. But well, the way I was raised, you'll be destroyed.
Right.
If you show a weakness, you're destroyed. So
right.
Why would I show anybody a weakness?
Right.
How are you? I'm fine.
Right. That's, I mean, early on when I was becoming a therapist, I had to have my own supervising therapist. And we were talking about when I'd go over someone's house, they'd ask, can I get you something to drink? And I could be dying of thirst. And I'd say, no, I'm fine. And the therapist was just like, just take the glass of water. Just say, yeah, I'd like a glass of water. I'd like a glass of sparkling water. Just, even if you don't want it, just practice taking it. Because why are you denying yourself that? And it seems simple talking about it now, but it was a powerful message. Why am I always saying, no, I'm fine? If I'm thirsty, right. I should say I'm thirsty. If I'm sad, then just say it. This is making me sad.
So how'd you get into comedy? What made you go comedy wise?
It's just, I've done this podcast and I covered the nuts and bolts of divorce. I talked to therapists and doctors and different lawyers. And then I started interviewing people who had their own divorce stories. George Lopez's wife, Anna, talked about.
I know them both very well forever. And George has been a friend and Anne for 36 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And she talked very movingly about her own situation and how she got through it and sort of how she had to look at it in a comedic light to get through it, how she got through it to the other side. And in fact, now how her daughter is now working with her dad, with George, who used to be.
And I work on that show.
Yeah.
So I'm with them all. I'm with all three of them a lot. And
it's a great story. And so that led me into talking to my producer and said, let's get some comedy people on. Let's figure out how comedians think, how they wrap their minds around these same problems that other people aren't thinking that way. And so it's been very interesting hearing from all sorts of people. I interviewed the three guys who did the Airplane movie, the two Zuckers and Abrams, and
Billy,
talk about.
Do you enjoy gladiator movies?
yeah, just talk about the complete twisted way of looking at things.
It's great.
Yeah.
You're getting some good people. That's good.
Yeah. But if you had the opportunity to address 500 people in a lecture hall and they're all going through a breakup, can you give 5 humorous things to tell them to do to help them get themselves through a heartache or out of the.
Well, let's back up and let's say that I sold 500 tickets. This is good. Okay. Or 500 people showed up that are all having the same problem. Is this an AA meeting?
Yeah, it's a version of it. It's Divorce Anonymous. Let's call it.
Okay. It could be a free clinic after a Charlie Sheen party too.
Yeah.
Could be any of that. What would I say? You got to look on the bright side, really, don't you? You kind of got to take the positives, girls. Now you can put the toilet seat where you want it. Don't worry about it, right? Oh, also girls, you don't have to guess what he's feeling ever again.
Right.
You can just be. You can decorate the house exactly how you want. It won't be messy. And guys, you won't have to hear her going on and on because we don't talk much. They talk. Right. They express. They're more complex than us. They have words, body language, feelings. I have 2 feelings: horny and hungry. And in that order, one way or another, Daddy's getting fed tonight. So it's just how you look at the prism of what the cards you're being dealt on. And the glass can either be half full or half empty. So that's what I would tell them.
Yeah. If you're having a down day, a day where you're blue, do you go to comedy? Do you watch comedy or listen to other comedians to try and pull yourself up out of it?
if there's no alcohol in the fridge, then I will. So here's what I find. I work on things what I call an outer circle behavior, which are behaviors that help my brain get heavy levels of dopamine. Not heavy levels, healthy levels of dopamine, rather than things that might create unhealthy levels of dopamine. So anytime I'm creative, so if I go to write jokes, it's really fun, especially if I do it in community with other guys. It's really a good system for me. Day trading for me is good. Somebody's honking their horn in the neighborhood. I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah,
maybe they liked what I said.
Yeah.
Also, I find worship. I believe in God, and I find when I worship God, and I go to giving thanks. It's really hard to be down when you're giving thanks for things that actually. It's crazy. I don't know what it does to the brain, but it works well for me.
Yeah. Can you think of a funny joke or story you shared with your audience about in one of your sets about a breakup?
About a breakup. So let's see. Now let me go back in the Rolodex. Yes. One time I was talking about how I should probably split up with this girl because we didn't really fit. She had a lot of money, and I was a starting comedian at the time. There was a big age difference too. She was older and had a lot of money, and I was like, wow, I would go over to her house and like, remember Sesame Street? Who are the people in your neighborhood? In your neighborhood. In your neighborhood. Bob Hope was a person in her neighborhood.
Wow.
Andy Garcia was a person 2 houses away. I go to my neighborhood, it's like, crack dealer is a person in my neighborhood. Someone who doesn't speak English is a person in my neighborhood. And then, so I would just took the pain of that and just said, maybe we're not really supposed to be together, and put it that way at the time.
Yeah. Wow. Do you have a mantra or some piece of advice that you use yourself on a daily basis to get you started? Like if you're writing, is writing a daily thing for you, or that you sit down and I'm going to write from 9 to 11, or is it you wait to be inspired and then decide to start writing?
When I started, I would let the concepts come to my head. And then I would flush them out and work on it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 8 months. And then I would wait for the next one to come.
Right.
And I don't do that anymore. Now I'm on a regular schedule of writing.
Right.
And I think it's better for the brain. I think it actually makes me happier. I feel more productive. And I'm putting out, I think, better stuff by being consistent in it. But I also have heavy levels of ADHD.
Right.
Like heavy. As a matter of fact, the psychiatrist he goes, we want you to take this test here. And he goes, go home tonight, take it. So I take it. And I come back to him the next day and he goes, okay, it's what we thought, but you're borderline. He goes, do us a favor. Go back with your wife and agree on each of these answers. So I get back to my wife and she goes, what'd you say for this? I said this. She goes, are you kidding? It's actually this. I go, oh, you're right. Like all the way down the list.
Right.
And then he goes, well, technically you're extremely ADHD. And so organization is hard for me. And being consistent and keeping schedules. But when I do those things, I can get hyper focused and really drill in on it and get crazy good stuff done. So I think the key for me, what we decided to do is I get so scattered and I never reject a project. So I'll have too many projects going. So now we said there's 3 pots on the stove at once. And if you're ever going to do another project, your wife, your therapist, and your best friend all have to agree that pot can go off and the new one can come on. And when I do that, I get stuff done better Like instead of a million things half done, things get done properly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Do you mind if I ask, you've been married for a good long time. How did you meet your wife? Going way
I've been
back
married
in time.
27 years.
Yeah.
Not in a row, 3 wives at the time. Know your city, David. Know your city. No, but I have been married. I met her 30 years ago, my wife, and I was working on a TV show called The Mike and Maddie Show. I don't know if you remember that. It was on
I do vaguely remember, yeah.
It was on Regis, after Regis and Kathy Lee, which it's now where The View is, the same spot, the same time slot. And so I was working on that, but I was an audience warm-up. So I entertained the audiences all day. And this girl came to the audience, and the host of the show, Mike, who's a good friend of mine, really liked her and started asking her out on some dates. But she lived in Texas, and she came out here and was hanging out. And he said to her one day, "You need to meet Ron." And we were filming in Malibu on the beach. And this pretty girl runs up, "Hey, are you Ron? Mike said we need to meet. You go to church?" Mike says, "You go to church?" "Yeah, I go to church." "You go to church?" "Oh, okay." And we started hanging out, and her brother were new to Los Angeles. So I would take them to comedy clubs and theaters and church and restaurants and stuff. But after 2 weeks, I'm like, wow, this girl's something else. But I think Mike's dating her. That's my friend and my boss. I don't want to do that. So one day I walked into his dressing room and I go, what's the deal with this girl? He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "You dating her?" He goes, "No." I go, "Yeah, you are." He goes, "No, I'm not."
Right.
I go, "Mike, you're my boss. You're my friend. I don't cross that line."
Right.
You know, I mean, you'll be around a lot longer than some girl will. And he goes, "No, I'm not dating her." I go, "But you were in the past. I still don't cross that line. You know, that's it's not good." And he goes, No, go for it." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, go for it." And he came to the wedding. And so
that's great.
Yeah. He's a good guy. So I think I did it properly. And because I was really trying to figure out what the deal is. And they were kind of new, and I think he thought that we would be a real good fit. So, and
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was right, apparently.
Yes.
And just to wrap up, to go in a different direction again, what do you think, are there a couple things that make your marriage successful, that you've been able to stay married for a long time? What is it about you and your wife, how you interact, that you've been able to stay married?
I think we have the same worldview.
Mm-hmm.
We're both extremely forgiving. We both respect one another. And then the last one is we just choose to.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest, because she's amazing. Like I think I woke up to how amazing she was 15 years into the marriage. Like 10 years ago, I woke up and went, "Oh, wow."
Right.
I didn't see how amazing she is. Like, kind of makes me mad that I wasted the first 15 years of, "Hey, I got a pretty good marriage," to this is really something special. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And when you do wake up, whether it's 10 years in or 2 weeks in, and you realize this person is someone that I get along with, and this person has my back no matter what. But if I commit a crime, they're going to lie for me to be my alibi. If
she's told me specifically she wouldn't do that part.
Oh, is that right? My wife said.
She goes, "I'm not going to perjure myself because I don't want to know too."
That I only said it because my wife said that to me in an early thing. She said, "I want someone who, if I commit some sort of crime, would you back me up?" And that was one of her early sort of questions to ask me. Do you want to have more kids? She had a bunch of questions, and apparently I answered them right. Because we're still here together all these years later. But
wow. Well, she definitely has my back, and I definitely have her back. I mean, we both believe we're each other's ride or die, I think. And yeah, she's really special and pretty rare. I always pick weird things, David, my whole life. You know, I learned how to juggle as a kid. Like, who does that?
Right.
And then I studied, foreign languages. I'll pick Russian. So I study Russian, and I go overseas. Then I'm at the University of Washington in the Dean's List in the business school, and I drop out to go be a street performer. Like I always pick weird things.
Right.
But when I met her, like they broke the mold with her. She's just very unique and very kind and very sweet. And so, you know, I lucked out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Tell our audience members where they can find more about your career, where you're going to be, where you're going to be touring.
Well, Ron Pearson Comedy is my website, and that gives the whole tour. And you can follow me on social media. My Instagram seems to be blowing up pretty big right now and doing well. Number of the clips are popping. I leave the tour on Saturday to go over to Israel. I do 6 shows across Israel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that will be interesting. Then I come back, and I'll be hitting Florida and Pennsylvania and Texas and just going all around. Just got back from Hawaii too, so it was good.
That's great. We'll post those right after this interview runs, so people know where you're going to be. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you this morning, finding out your perspective, and for me, that piece of advice. We decide to stay together. The 3 things you said that keep you and your wife together. You decide every day we're going to stay together. That seems to me the most important lesson anyone could learn from this podcast episode.
Even when there's things that you don't like, really don't like.
Yeah.
Because I think when there's no back door, if there's not a back door, then you're going to go, well, then let's fix it. So I'm the kind that I don't have I never would go to someone with a problem. Like, here's my problem. So I'm only in my older years learning how to voice, hey, this is my feeling on this, and it's really bothering me. I never did that in the past. I just didn't have that capability. Just having to learn it. But yeah, thank goodness there's no back door.
Yeah. Right, and you create that. You boarded up the back door, and that forces you to stay in the room. It's not that you didn't find a house without a back door. I think you boarded it up and said, "I'm not going out the back door," and that's sometimes what it takes to stay committed to a relationship.
That's the best way to put it, right there. You just nailed it, and so did I.
Right, absolutely. Great talking to you today.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate
it.
See you.
Thanks so much for watching. Check back with us for another new episode, or visit thehourglasspodcast.com, where you'll find dozens of archived interviews, all of which are meant to help you. Thanks.